I'm Latricenjee. Last week I said we'd spend some time talking about time. In the blog last week we started talking about having a plan for success in every project. And I said if you stuck with me this week, we'd talk about time. We started with the 5 steps of information flow. And if you want to know what those are, if you didn't already see them, you can go back and look at my blog from last week. But one thing that wasn't a part of that information flow was time. And time is really important to every project, whether it's a work project or something you're doing around the house, something you're doing at church or wherever you're active. Time is important. So we want to discuss that. So the first thing you want to do is ask yourself, how do you deal with time, or how do other people see you dealing with time? And so I've come up with some questions here that you should just ask yourself. And you're going to rate yourself based upon your answer, so be honest. The ultimate goal of this is to find out how you are with timeliness. It should indicate whether or not people agree with your assessment of yourself. So if you ask yourself the question, how am I with timeliness? And you say, oh, I'm great. You might want to find out if other people think you do. And this is a good way to, this is a good litmus test to decide if other people agree with you or not. So the first question is, or the first statement you want to say, and you're going to judge this on a 1 to 3 scale. 1 being, I disagree. 2 being, I'm unsure. And 3 being, I agree. Okay? So the first one is, I almost always complete my projects on time. Again, 1 being, you disagree. 2, you're unsure. 3, you agree. Okay? Number 2, other people always abide by my timelines that I set for my projects. 1 to 3. Number 3, I know what makes a timeline work and why it can fail. So, 1 to 3. Do you know what your pitfalls are when your timeline doesn't work out? Number 4, when my projects get off track, I always know how to get them going again. Good question. And finally, number 5, I know when and how to use incentives to get people to go along with me so I get the results that I want. So number 5 again is, I know when and how to use incentives to get other people to help me to get the results I want. Okay. And you are rating all 5 of those on a scale of 1 to 3. If you scored 12 or more, woohoo for you, you're great. You are a time master, okay? If you scored 11 to 8, you might need to work a little bit, but you're okay. You're not awful. You just might have a few things you can work on. If you scored 7 or less, you want to think about how you use your time and how you schedule it, because time impacts everything that we do. It doesn't just impact our business, right? It doesn't just impact our projects. It impacts how we schedule our day, how we care for things around our home, if you work out of your home, how you take care of your family, how you take care of, activities that you enjoy, sports or whatever you have, whatever your commitments are. It's not just, whether or not you get a project at work. You may have a job that doesn't require you to have major projects at work, but your time is still important. You don't want to get to work at 8 and then you find out by 2 o'clock the only thing you've done is read your email, right? That's a time issue. And when you set goals for time, you want to be specific about the effectiveness of your time. So you want to stay away from phrases that are ineffective. So if you're giving directives for time. You don't want to use phrases like as soon as possible or at your earliest convenience or advise when you can get around to it, because that doesn't give a sense of urgency for time, and that might be a pitfall for people not following through on time commitments that you expect them to follow through on. There are 3 types of timelines that you can work your way through. One is a reasonable timeline, then you have an equitable timeline, and you have a self-imposed timeline. And we'll start with the reasonable timeline, and then we'll go through the other 2. And we'll talk more about which timeline works best for you. Okay? A specific timeline should make people want to jump to action when you speak. People should know, okay, this person sent me something. I know they're serious about being on time with their projects, so I want to, follow through. A reasonable timeline, you have to decide how much time is required and realistic, because 25 to 50% of your timeline estimates should be realistic. And if they are, then that helps you follow through. And I'm going to give some notes on this at the end of this so you'll have them. Equitable timeline is, are you using your time to the best of your ability? Are the activities that you're coming up with activities that give value? And you want to base your timeline upon that. What are the things that we can do that give value? And then you should, if you go through your equitable timeline and you find out that they're not giving value, you want to establish some facts. Are they required? Does someone in your department require them? Does someone on your project require certain activities? And that will help you focus on what you actually need in your timeline, it'll focus on the facts that you need in your timeline rather than your personal opinion. And then finally, you want to ask yourself, is my timeline self-imposed? No timeline is ever going to work until you get other people to commit to your timeline in your project. So you could come up with the best timeline ever, put it in your Visio and send it out to everyone. But until you get buy-in, it never works out. And then you want to do a self-assessment. Are you buying in to all 3 aspects of a timeline? If your answer is yes, then you'll be sure to be successful with your timeline in your project, whatever that is. Be that at work, be that working from home, the school's bake sale, school's fall festival, whatever you have coming up. If it's not, that is an indication that you'll need to start over with your timeline. And timelines are great because they give you the flexibility to start over and still plan a route to success. We'll talk more about timelines later on in the week. But today, that's all the information I'm going to share with you. And feel free to leave your comments below about what you think is important to a timeline, and we'll try to add that into the blog. Thank you so much for stopping by. Well, that's all I have for you today. I always like to leave you with something motivational. So for today, I'll leave you with this. Seest thou a man diligent in his business? He shall stand before kings. And that's found in Proverbs 22:29. Make it a wonderful day. Bye.